Joining me now is Multnomah County District Attorney Nathan Vasquez. DA Vasquez, we appreciate your time this morning.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
On Thursday, a Border Patrol agent shot two individuals in East Portland. Still in the very early stages of this investigation, what have you learned in the last 12 hours or so that you can share with us?
Well, myself and members of my office, we went out to the scene yesterday evening, and we've been monitoring this very closely. We are certainly working to make sure that our local interests are represented and that a thorough and complete investigation is done. And so, we have been just really, we were there till late last night and got up early this morning and started working on it again. So we're still hard at it.
When you say local interests, what do you mean by that?
Well, obviously this involves a federal agent, and it's an officer-involved shooting. But this still happened in my jurisdiction, in our town, and so I know that this community has a lot of concerns about this, and I want to make sure that they feel confident that their local officials are doing everything they can to ensure that evidence is preserved, the facts come out, and that all of the appropriate actions are taken.
We're seeing this play out in Minneapolis at the same time. What role does a local district attorney's office play in the investigation of a federal officer shooting?
That's a very interesting and challenging question. And so, there are obviously the different layers of jurisdiction. The U.S. Attorney's Office is certainly taking the lead on this with the FBI conducting the investigation. But there are still, state laws still exist, and they're still there. And so if we are not satisfied that things are done appropriately, certainly we can take actions. And that's where we're going to be very careful as we go forward. I've been in great communication with the Attorney General's office, with the U.S. Attorney's Office, with Portland Police, and the Attorney General and I have talked, and they will be also kind of collaborating with this to make sure that the investigation is done properly, and then submitting that to my office for our review.
You're hearing state and local leaders in Minneapolis express doubt about whether there will be a thorough investigation. That came up yesterday in the news conference with the mayor and the governor and other local leaders. What level of confidence do you have that the federal government here will do a thorough investigation?
Well, we have a good relationship with our local U.S. Attorney's Office. We work well with them. They are very skilled attorneys, and the FBI agents that work here in this jurisdiction do a great job. With that being said, we are going to be very thorough in our approach. And again, for me, as a practical prosecutor who's very professional in what we do, we are going to be looking to make sure that the best practices are followed, that we can do everything we can to ensure that evidence is preserved, that all the facts come to light.
The Department of Homeland Security has identified the people who were shot, saying they are affiliated with Tren de Aragua, the Venezuelan gang, and are connected to other crimes in Portland. Does your office have any cases against these individuals?
These are all things that we're going to be looking at and going through very carefully as we evaluate the case. One, to make sure that if there are other pending matters out there that they're taken care of, but also just to make sure we get a full picture of what's going on in the situation.
Do you have any knowledge of whether Tren de Aragua is active in Portland and Multnomah County?
It's certainly something that we have seen, and we are working on with our local law enforcement. We've seen them in our area. They are one of kind of a host of different groups or individuals out there that are engaged in criminal activity, and it's something that we're working on.
You've been a prosecutor here for a long time. Have you noticed that level of involvement change recently, or has that been a pretty consistent presence?
I mean, this is certainly a newer group that has come into our jurisdiction, but it's not the first time we've seen cartels or, outside of the United States kind of groups come in. So this one, while newer, it's not something that we haven't encountered in the past.
You've been in office now a year. You were a prosecutor for much longer before that. Have you noticed any changes, uptick, or any more activity in just gang violence in general?
Actually what we've seen is really two really important parts. One is we've seen a decrease in violent crime, which has been fantastic for our community. We've seen a reduction in the amount of homicides our community experienced. We've seen a reduction in the violent shootings and things of that nature, which has been fantastic. It's still far too high from where I want it to be, and there's a lot of challenges and work left to be done, but we've seen some really positive progress there. We've also seen on that other side of that coin, the partnership with Portland Police has really come together. In fact, we saw an additional 2,000 cases referred to my office this past year. So we were at about a little over or just a little under 13,000, and we're now over 15,000 cases that were referred last year. So really good progress.
One thing I've heard in my reporting is a big key in this violence reduction is the collaboration between state agencies, local agencies, but as well as these federal agencies. I'm hoping you can help us understand the distinction when local agencies collaborate with federal agencies on shooting investigations, and individuals come up who may also be involved with immigration enforcement. Where is that line where local and state agencies will help on the shooting side, but then cannot, by law, help on the immigration side?
It's a very bright line, and it's one that we certainly demand that our federal partners respect, and we have been clear all along the ways that we will not engage in any immigration enforcement actions. We will not provide information. So our focus will always remain on local issues that involve perhaps issues of criminal activity and violence that we want to make sure our victims and our community are taken care of, but we are not going to engage in any of the immigration enforcement actions.
Does that happen where you have a suspect in a shooting, the federal government finds out they have an immigration detainer, for instance, or a order for removal? Do those conversations happen at all?
No, we do not engage in those type of conversations. It is extremely important that my office, that my deputies, and I know that our local law enforcement, they respect our sanctuary laws, and we make sure that that is a daily reminder that we are to protect this community here, and we are not involved in that immigration enforcement.
In other words, the focus is solely on the shooting.
Yes, exactly.
Is there anything else on this shooting and the investigation that you think is important for the community to know?
Well, I think it's very important to know that we are diligently working on this matter, and as a professional prosecutor and the prosecutors in my office, we want to make sure that our local interests are protected, that this investigation occurs in a professional manner in which all of the facts and information are brought to light. We want this to be transparent, and we want our community to get answers to what happened yesterday.
Let's turn now to drug deflection.